So relax and enjoy. I'd like your support. Fresh video every day. Looking forward to hearing your opinion. Let's go.
I can't go home because my mom wants me to get pregnant and drop out of school. She was on track to be the first in her family to go to college, but her mom was pressuring her to start collecting welfare benefits to do her part in supporting the family. She ended up with a full ride scholarship. That's so fact, not the last part. I did a FBAP, functional behavior assessment, on a second grader with emotional impairment. When I asked him the question who at school likes me, he couldn't answer and wouldn't stop staring at the floor. When I told him that I liked him, he started crying. Edit. Holy cow, this blew up. If you are interested in emotional impairment in schools, I would recommend the book Lost at School. It's very interesting. That is heartbreaking. Thank you for being supportive of him in that instant. While I wasn't in FBAP when I was in elementary, in 4th grade, up to that point, I was heavily bullied, even by the teachers and staff, and I felt absolutely hated by everyone. And it kinda built up over time to that point, and I just started crying in class one day, and my new teacher asked if I could talk after class, and the same convo went down there. I'll never forget how nice she was. I have a very angry student who to this day picks fights with every student whom so much as looks at him. He perpetuates arguments, picks physical altercation, lashes out, and has repeatedly called me a bitch for reprimanding him. One day, I finally got him to calm down after one of these outbursts. I pleaded with him, trying to better understand why he was like this. He refused to answer me, and so I figured it was time to call his mother in for a parent conference. In the meeting, his mother confessed to us that his father died last summer of a heroin overdose. The student, sitting right there next to his mom with tears in his eyes, looked at me and said I found his body. It broke my heart. To this day, I feel his pain when he lashes out, and I try my hardest to earn his trust. I hope that one day he'll be okay. There was a girl in my daughter's grade school who was picked on unmercifully. My daughter often defended her, which in turn caused my daughter to be teased. This child was filthy, smelling of urine and ground in dirt, and was mean, hating the entire world. Flash forward 20 years, and I was speaking to a phys ed teacher and this girl's name came up. Phys ed teacher said in high school, she and the home economics teacher bought this child clothes and had her shower and clean up every day when she came into school. The next day, the child would come in just as filthy as if she had never taken a shower at all. Senior year, the phys ed teacher finally got the girl to speak about why, and she told her every day her father or her brother would rape her, and if she was dirty enough, she thought they would leave her alone. She had no friends to tell, and mom had passed away. I wonder what happened to this girl later. I would give and award to the two teachers who got involved, if there was such a thing. Dude feck. Fecking hell. Some of the stuff on here is really bad, but this is fucking horrible. A first grade student told me out of the blue, my favorite thing about you is you're never on your phone. If that isn't telling, I don't know what is. Damn, I didn't even think about this. Teachers might be the only adults that kids see anymore that aren't constantly browsing the internet or texting people in the kids' presence. My students say this a lot. Teachers are one of the few people in children's lives from whom they experience extended focused attention. Parents sit on their phones half the time or palm their kids off with devices. When even the very youngest children in school draw their family, mum and dad usually have a phone in their hand. Me, hey buddy, are you feeling okay? Him, I'm just so lonely, real human being. Something about the way he said it just kinda broke my heart. Not a teacher, but overheard a girl and a teacher talking. We all went to a more special high school, smaller classes and more flexible schedules and such. He was trying to give her a pep talk about all the things she could do, since she seemed depressed that day and didn't feel like doing schoolwork. He was saying both short-term and long-term stuff, like getting herself a treat after school to cheer herself up, listening to favorite music, telling her she was smart enough to do anything she wanted. What broke my heart was when in response to the careers and future plans she said, my family said girls can't do that stuff. She was from a fairly middle class family, white, owned a dog, and southern. The parents were college educated, so it was a huge shocker to hear her say that. Talking to her later, it turned out that she was only expected to go to college to find a boyfriend/husband, so it didn't matter what she wanted to do. After that, the teachers and other students who also overheard started to look out for her more and helping her when she needed it. Last I saw, on her Facebook at least, she seems to be doing very well, so I'm happy she's doing better. Still makes me feel sad that some people still think that being born a certain gender, boy or girl, stops them from doing certain things. My fiance's parents did a similar thing to her, except they decided she couldn't even go to college. She's a fantastic person, but had such a messed up childhood that I have to take care of most things for her because she was never properly prepared and exposed to the real world. She's a stay-at-home mom with our 9-month-old right now, but she talks about maybe going back to college every now and then. I encourage her every time and told her I will support her through the entire thing, but it's up to her to take that step. She gets really upset sometimes because she feels like her parents crushed her potential, and it's hard to make her see that her potential is still there and it's never too late to go out and use it. She's only 30. I have a few stories. The school I used to teach in hires a Muppet company every year to teach about sexual abuse. What's the private part? No one should be allowed to touch it beside you. How to report it? So it was my first year teaching. We got the kids to the auditorium for the show. After the show, the host asked the students to stay if things from the show has happened to them. I was ready to get up and bring my entire class back to the classroom, only to realize 4 of my students remained seated. I turned to a fellow teacher, and she basically told me, "Yup, it happens." My heart dropped. My kids were 3rd graders. Another one was a struggling student, Maggie, below grade level reading and math levels. I did a small group with her, another struggling student and another teacher. We started talking about our weekend plans and people in our families. After the 3 of us shared, Maggie said she lives with her brother and dad, and the other student asked, "What about your mom?" Maggie replied that her mom worked a lot and she doesn't see her that often. My fellow teacher asked, "Oh, so like last week?" "No, it wasn't." Maggie said it under her breath. Last year, on my dad's birthday, we were in the beginning of the school year, like October. We also did mood meter, and when someone puts their name on blue or red emotions, we would do a big circle share. One day, multiple students felt depressed and sad, so we sat and shared, only to find out that one kid who are far below his grade level lived with his aunt's family because his dad left the family and his mom was in prison. Imagine hearing an 8-year-old tell you that my mom, she is in prison and I miss her. Other kids were being so supportive and I got choked up. Got parents who were in denial about their kids' disabilities which prevented them from receiving reasonable accommodations. Got a girl whose father murdered the entire family and she was the only survivor. The list goes on and on. I was ready to get up and bring my entire class back to the classroom, only to realize 4 of my students remained seated. I turned to a fellow teacher, and she basically told me, "Yup, it happens." My heart dropped. My kids were 3rd graders, and those other students with the courage to stay, knowing that other people in their class will know they stayed. There are undoubtedly more who were too ashamed to stay. I tutored underprivileged kids in college, free for them. One little girl was extremely excited about getting to see her mom for Thanksgiving. The mom was in jail and the little girl, 1st or 2nd grade, hadn't seen her in living memory. Unfortunately, I was at the other location after Thanksgiving and didn't see her again. "I'm hungry," said in a small voice. Obligatory, not a teacher. When I was 17 over 18, I kind of made friends with a 12-year-old at my school. He was different and lots of people used to laugh at him for that and not want to talk to him or let him sit near them, etc. I wanted to be his friend because he seemed nice and friendly, and I wanted for him to make sure he knew someone was looking out for him despite my friends, 15 and 18, also making fun of him and finding him weird and sometimes annoying. I did tell my friends off many times for that, especially the 18-year, because he was so much older and should have known better. One day when my friends weren't on the bus, the 12-year-old came and sat near me, and we chatted about school and stuff. And then he asked me, why do so many people in my year hate me? It broke my heart. I didn't know what to say, so I said something along the lines of, because sometimes, especially at school, people can be insecure and stupid. The next day, because I knew his mum worked at the school, I found her and told her what happened, and she told me that her son has Asperger's and that it can be quite difficult for him, and she thanked me for telling her and looking out for him. I kind of assumed he had ASD, but I didn't ask him because it didn't really matter. I finished school now, and I do worry about him sometimes. School is rough, especially for people with ASD. As someone with ASD, but not officially diagnosed until past secondary school, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Kids are cruel and school can be hell, and I'm glad you were there for that boy. Asperger's really can be terrible for your social life. Hope he's doing well. I can confirm this personally. I'm autistic, and the amount of bullying and social exclusion I went through during elementary and middle school has permanently scarred me. This was about 2 or 3 years back. Not a teacher, but a student who sat next to the sad kid who told the teacher after class that he was being bullied by the jocks who sit near us, and he wanted his seat to be moved across the room away from them. She told him that it wasn't her problem, that he was having issues with students outside of school and couldn't change his seat because it would mess up the whole classroom attendance order. As someone who was severely bullied for nearly 7 years, I know just how shitty that kid feels. So I'll let him sit in my spot for the rest of the year because it was just slightly further away from the bullies. And best of all, the teacher never realized, so that whole attendance order shit was completely false. She just didn't care enough to do anything about him. What a sad place this is. Good on you for looking out for that kid, and shame on the teacher for not giving a crap. I had a 6th grade student who told me and his caseworker that he didn't like it when his mom gave massages in the basement because he could hear everything. Oh no. Hol up. It depends on how you look at it, but when I was in elementary school, the teachers were telling us whether or not we passed the STAR test. When my friend got her score, she started to cry. We asked what was wrong, and she told us that she was happy that she had passed, so now she can see her father, whom she hadn't seen in 5 years. We were all about 10, which means she hadn't seen him since she was 5. They didn't seem too rich, so I suppose they had to limit the times they traveled anywhere, and thinking back, he may have been deported. That day I learned to appreciate that I'm lucky enough to have both my parents under my roof. Not regular teacher, but teach self-defense. Had a trial student ask me, can you make sure I don't get gang raped again? Not a great day for me. Damn, what do you even say to that? I once had an 8th grade boy at school for kids identified as gifted and or superior cognitive say that he was dumb because all African Americans aren't smart. I was a student teacher at the time, but I had a really good discussion with him about the way our system discriminates against African American people. My mentor teacher pumped him up, reminding him that he was with us because he was intelligent too. It broke my heart a bit. I had an 8th grader out at the beginning of my first year teaching as an outsider in a very small rural town in Alabama. The girl missed the first 3 months of school. Admin told me she was sick and to excuse the work. Around early November, she showed up and looked like hell. When I asked how she was feeling, she told me that she was fine, but the baby wasn't sleeping through the night yet. I assumed this was a sibling. Nope. It was her baby. I immediately went to admin about it, and they told me to leave it alone. I refused. I asked around, looked through old files, and talked to the girl. It turns out, my 8th grade student was supposed to be in 11th grade, but because she had been pregnant every year since 8th grade, she kept failing. This was her 4th freaking baby. As I got to know her over the next couple months, I found out that her dad was paying migrant farm workers to impregnate his daughter so he could collect the welfare check for her being a single underage mom and a check for the baby being a minority, and that her dad was high school buddies with our superintendent, and my school's principal was a super's daughter, which explained why no one had reported that nonsense in 4 years, and the admin told me to leave it alone. I not only called CPS, but I called every level of police in the area and the State Board of Education to report every single person complicit in allowing a child to be repeatedly raped and impregnated for money. An investigation was started right before Christmas, but the girl didn't come back to school after Christmas break, so I never found out what happened to her or her babies. The superintendent was investigated, but resigned before they did anything to him. A few others, including the principal and the guidance counselor, were put on probation or something. Pretty much just a slap on the wrist. The school resource officer and school nurse were fired for failure to report. Unsurprisingly, I was pink slipped at the end of the year. I subbed for a little while after that, but the whole situation left me so disgusted with the system that I left teaching completely. I'm not a teacher, but another student in year 5 was sat on the bench crying, so me being me goes over to ask what's wrong. This girl had been bullied by a large group since she started at the school in year 3. Anyway, I ask her, and she just falls into my arms, crying even more now, and then looks up at me and says, "Why are you here? It's not like you care about me. No one cares about TNE. Not even my own family." I hug and tell her that I care and sat and talked all lunchtime. Turns out her parents had kicked her out and she was living on the streets for 5 days. Doesn't seem like a lot, but for a 10-year-old girl by herself it is. I tell my mum, and my mum decides to tell the police. Her parents are put in jail for abusing the girl, and my parents ask if she can stay with us. Until this day, years later, we are still best friends / sisters, and I love her loads. I don't know that it was a specific sentence, but as an ESL teacher I've had a number of refugee students from various countries. I'm not talking about immigrants. I mean people who have fled from their country because they would have been executed / killed otherwise. When given the chance to make speeches in class, they would open up and describe intimate details of their lives, which were both amazing and horrifying. A Rua boy told us about how much he missed his friends who he'd never see again. An Iranian newspaper reporter described the difficulties he faced trying to get his belongings sold there, with the government seizing everything and his life savings disappearing overnight. A Saudi girl described her hysterectomy and how she felt like she no longer had value. An Iranian concert pianist showed us photos of his hometown, knowing that he would never set foot in the place he knew as home. A sweet Bosnian girl described ducking behind cars on her way to school to avoid bullets. These moments teach me that no matter what I'm going through, there are people out there who have it worse, and that we should try to be compassionate. We never know what the random person in front of you might be going through. My wife taught for several years in Detroit, NHA. There was a lot of crazy shit I heard, but probably the worst was my baby brother died on purpose. Was he murdered? Not a teacher, but a daycare preschool teacher. I had a little girl, 4, in my class who was so unruly, but needed constant attention. She would scream, cry, hit and throw things. We never could figure it out exactly why. We knew both her parents and stepmother. They were very active and doted on her. One day she came into class and sat right on my lap and asked if I wanted to help her wipe in the bathroom. Big no. I asked her why, and she said my uncle likes to wipe me and stick his finger in me. I was done. Called CPS and the police. He was charged, and her parents pulled her out, and we didn't get to see her again. Why would they pull her out of the school? It sounds like the parents genuinely cared for that little girl. I'd have thought they'd be thankful that you helped her. Not a teacher, but talked to one of my friend's younger sisters. She told me I was so lucky to have loving and supportive parents. It broke my heart to hear, because I know what she said is true. So many of my friends have told me about how their Asian parents compare them to other kids, call them fat, ugly, plan their life out for them, and leave no choice for their own hopes and dreams, among many other things. I hate you. I hate you. You're just like my father. This one student told me she hated how she looked and wanted to be me, so people would stop making fun of her hair. She has dark skin and very curly hair, and I'm white. It made me very sad.